From the Central Western Washington area, Choice Regional Health Network presents the Equity Circle podcast, a place for information with integrity, accountability, and innovation. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. My name is Lawrence Kinnaman, and I'm the host of the Equity Circle podcast. I'm excited to be here today with Dr. Mary Biggerstaff. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a doctor of nursing practice. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I also have a master's in public health from UC Berkeley. So I am a local clinician, and I've worked in family practice in the Olympia, Grays Harbor, Lewis County area for the past 12 years.
Okay.
And this past 18 months, I have been working with Birdseye Medical, which is an organization that got started in Olympia to help with the COVID crisis.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like you not only cover the Thurston County area, I think you mentioned Lewis and Mason County as well.
Lewis and Grays Harbor, yes.
Oh, Grays Harbor. Okay, awesome. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself personally?
Yeah, okay. So I am actually a Lacey Olympia native. So I've been here pretty much my whole life. So other than going to college away, really active in the community and kind of local politics. And
Sure.
I also have my doctoral research was done on health equity and the use of interpreters, especially for immigrant and refugee communities. So that's something that I've really for a long time is very important to me to try and do the best I can to make sure I'm providing the highest quality care. And that has spilled over into my work with public health and with Birdseye.
Sure. That's awesome. Well, we are excited to have you on the podcast today and really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be here. Why don't we just start by asking if you have been vaccinated and why you chose to be vaccinated?
Absolutely. I got as vaccinated as early as I could, which given that I'm a healthcare professional and kind of frontline worker was pretty early.
Okay.
I think I had read the initial data and I feel like I have a good understanding of what the data said about safety and efficacy. And I think the vaccines are almost akin to a miracle and not a miracle in the sense that they just came from nowhere out of nowhere, but they are one of the best scientific inventions that we have had or available to us that we've had in my lifetime. And I was so pleased that we had the option to be vaccinated as quickly as we had. And the mRNA vaccine seems to be so safe and also so effective at combating it. I mean, after a year plus of lockdown of, my whole life kind of being put on hold, it felt so good to actually have some options and to have some hope that we can get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounded like that understanding the data and seeing how efficient and safe it was, you really felt like this was the right decision to make for you.
Absolutely. And I think the mRNA vaccines give a lot of people pause because it is a newer technology,
Sure,
but it's
sure.
really amazing. And I think I think it really in the next 5 to 10 years will be something that will be common and used for a lot of diseases and or vaccines that we need.
Can you talk a little bit more about the mRNA and the data and, for those that, for lay people maybe who aren't in the medical field and don't understand it, can you talk a little about what it is and why it's so important, not only in the COVID vaccine, but like you said, in the future of medicine?
Yeah, and so the mRNA technology kind of is basically able to give our immune system very specific information about what they want us to fight. So they are looking at potentially mRNA vaccines for a wide variety of diseases, and they've been working on that for a long time. It's been kind of in the works for 10 years,
Sure.
but it was something that was really fast tracked because of COVID and the need for a worldwide vaccine to
Sure.
be replicated. So yeah, I think that that's kind of the best way to describe it is it works a little bit differently than other vaccines have in the past because it gives very direct and specific data to our immune system. And so it gives our immune system better information to be able to prepare to fight viruses than previous vaccines.
One of the things that I know I've heard quite a bit, and especially in terms of misinformation or things that are shared, is that some of that mRNA can potentially alter your DNA. Can you clarify if that's true or not?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I actually was having a conversation with my own brother about this
Okay.
last week. Yes, it does not. I think it gives the mRNA messenger RNA is something that is part of our genetic code in our bodies. We have that,
Sure.
and it provides information. I'm trying to get not to get too technical, but it does not in any way alter our genes or our DNA. That is absolutely completely not true, and that is just not a risk. It gives information to our cells so that they can make immune products, and it uses a component of our DNA but does not alter our base fundamental DNA at all.
Got it. So the people that have concerns about that, there's no need for concern about that,
Yeah,
correct?
not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in hearing that you got vaccinated and some of the reasons that you shared, can you talk a little bit about maybe I'll start first with some of the acceptance that you've seen in terms of getting the vaccine. You mentioned that you've been partnering with Bird's Eye Medical over the last 18 months or so, and doing a lot of work, as you mentioned before, in other counties outside of Thurston County. So can you just talk a little bit about some of the acceptance that you've seen and reasons for why people are getting vaccinated?
Yeah, and I would say are not getting vaccinated or are getting vaccinated.
Uh, I'll start with the ones that are getting vaccinated.
Are getting vaccinated. Yeah, and I can kind of even speak for myself and my immediate family. My mother is 83. So again, I think that I probably have a fairly high level of scientific literacy and was able to share with my friends and family about that. So in my immediate circle and family, there was really almost no hesitation. Like people were just very excited to get the vaccine, very
Sure,
enthusiastic
sure,
about it. And then, but in my work in Lewis County and Grays Harbor County, and then also, immigrant communities, et cetera, there is more vaccine hesitancy. I mean, I think that people are right. I think it's okay and it's fine if people want really good answers and maybe are a little mistrustful of pharmaceutical companies or
sure,
government or even
sure,
public
sure.
health agencies. There's different levels of hesitancy that come across with how much they trust information coming out, and so just trying to talk to people, and you hear a huge variety of reasons why people either say they'll never get vaccinated and are like, no, it's never going to happen, versus,
Sure.
well, maybe I just want to wait it out of 6 months and see how it goes. This is kind of new and I'm going to kind of watch and wait. And so I think what's really important is just listening to people, what their concerns are, and trying to answer the questions the best I can, and also acknowledging if they have fears or concerns. They have a right to have those fears and concerns. I mean, it is your body. You have the right to decide what you want to do. And
Sure.
so when they express that, it's important to listen.
So it sounds like your response really is kind of coming in from a empathetic standpoint of compassion and understanding that you can understand maybe why people have either frustrations or concerns or just want to get more information and understand, but you still are encouraging people to get vaccinated and trying to answer questions as best as you can. Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely. And I think, my answer would have been different last January when I got vaccinated. It had been trialed, but it was still fairly new and it was just rolling out to the larger
Sure,
population.
sure,
But at this point, we've had over 150 million people in the US have been safely vaccinated. And so I think that hesitancy should be going down if they're just watching and they're just worried about the new technology.
yeah.
It has proven incredibly safe.
What would you say, just maybe to get a little bit more specific, like you've mentioned, having a mother who's 83. Have you heard other people say, I got vaccinated because, I really wanted to protect my family or I didn't want to pass it on to other people? We've had other people on the podcast who've mentioned one of their biggest fears was unknowingly passing on the virus to someone who especially is very vulnerable. So would you say those are some of the reasons that people end up getting vaccinated? And also, what are other reasons you've seen?
Yeah, and I think yes, you see people that were maybe a little hesitant. One group in Washington State that did an amazing job was the tribal communities, and they really did a fantastic job of communicating the need to support our community, and that it isn't just an individual. It is not just an individual choice. Obviously, that person, you have to make that decision, but it is not something that's not just about you and your health. It is absolutely about the health of your community and
Sure.
friends and family and people that you love.
So it's really, I think, something that I've heard often, not only in doing these podcast interviews, but in conversations with people. I think one of the things that's really important is that it is only it's not only about you and you choosing to get vaccinated, but it really is about your community and the people that you're around, and really seeing how that's important in people getting vaccinated. Um, so I kind of want to change directions a little bit, and I want to hear maybe some of the reasons you mentioned a little bit already, but some of the reasons why people aren't getting vaccinated and some of the reasons that you're hearing. I know you mentioned a little about mistrusting government. I know often in the immigrant communities, that there is kind of a fear of or concern that, why am I getting offered to get this vaccination for free? And there's also incentive from the government for me to get the vaccine. I've heard that a lot as in terms of fear, or not wanting to be tracked by ICE. I mean, there's several reasons that I've heard, maybe more specifically from the immigrant community, but I would love to hear from you what you've seen in terms of hesitancy and what people are experiencing or saying.
Yeah, gosh, and I think that I probably over the past year, both as a clinician and working for Bird's Eye and stuff, had heard just about every reason there probably is out there.
Sure, sure.
You mentioned just kind of being nervous about, okay, it seems like it's a new technology. How do we really know it's safe? Um, I think that some of the more common things that I've heard more recently, I actually have not heard anybody tell me about the magnetized. I know that is something that's out there that people are worried it makes you magnetized. I have not personally heard somebody tell me that.
Mm,
Concerns about fertility, that again, that could alter your DNA, that does it affect women's fertility in the future. I've also a little bit more recently heard people describing religious reasons. They're not always very specific, but saying that they think that, their pastor or whatever, somebody has advised them that it's anti-Christian, or that it would be a sin to get a vaccine. So I've heard that. I also a fair amount. I have 4 teenagers as well, so a fair amount of people saying, well, 99% of people recover from COVID, which is actually not a real statistic. And they'll be like, well, I'm young and healthy. Why should I get it? Like, why even
mm.
take the risk? Why don't I just go ahead and keep on going? So I think
Sure.
those, that I'll just get COVID and it'll be fine and it won't be a big deal. So I don't need to take any risk at all with that vaccine. So those are the more common issues I hear.
What would be? I'm just curious. What are some of the responses that you've been able to give to some of those questions or things that people point out?
Um, yeah, so I will try and share with them the data. Again, I always try and acknowledge and start with validating what their feelings and their
Sure.
emotions and experience, rather than shaming, because that's I feel a much more effective approach. And then I will try and ask them about where they're getting their information. That actually sometimes helps if they can show me what they're looking at, and I can kind of explain to them why or I would not believe this. I mean, I think some things like the question about, oh, it alters your DNA. I feel like I can very definitively give them a strong answer that says, no, it doesn't. You don't need to worry about that. And I can show them good answers. The CDC and the state of Washington have really good resources. So I'll share that and go over that with them and have them read that with me. It's a little bit harder when it becomes kind of like almost a political or religious identity, because you can't really,
Mm,
there's no facts you can give people that are gonna necessarily change somebody's mind on that. I do
sure.
share. I actually have shared sometimes with people. My mother is very deeply religious, and she's been telling people in her church who are vaccine hesitant that, that as a Christian, it's important that you take care of others and do what Christ would do, and take care of other people and not just think about yourself. And so I
Sure.
have actually shared that with some people, and they've kind of said that, as just said, I'm not discounting that you're coming to the table with those beliefs, but let's look at it a different way.
Yeah, what in one of our previous podcasts, we actually sat down with a reverend from the Christian community,
Yeah.
and she talked a lot about that and the importance of kind of exactly what you shared. Really, is that from a Christian identity standpoint, there is this idea that it's not just about you; it's about other people as well, and how do we um, lay down our lives, so to speak, to help other people and make sure that they're safe, and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So I do appreciate that, and thank you for answering that. What have you seen that has helped reduce hesitancy or reduce concerns that people have? I know you talked about validating. You talked about asking, where are some of the information and resources that they're getting that from. But what else have you seen that's been helpful in that regard?
Well, and I think what's one thing that we've done through Birdseye as a vaccine provider that's been incredibly helpful is community partnerships, and those are not things that come quickly. I mean, we've worked with other organizations, the Equity Institute in Lewis County and Vaccine Equity Partnership in Snohomish County, to do specific and targeted outreach to different ethnic and cultural minority groups in Washington state. And we've really just listened to them, and we've let them know, they let us know what kind of the questions or concerns or what things we should be particularly certain to do,
Sure.
and approach that. And then talking to community leaders that are trusted. And so I think that you have that much stronger of a response if you're partnering with a priest that people trust and work with, or just a community leader. So, and that's not necessarily about that's not individual one-on-one interaction, but that's been incredibly valuable.
Mm. Yeah, the individual one-on-one or testimony, so to speak, have been very helpful in what we've heard in these podcast interviews, as well, and just in conversations with other people. It seemed to be just having that conversation one-on-one, and it is a lot more disarming
Mhm.
than maybe other means at times. So, as we kind of come to a close, I first want to say thank you so much for taking the time again out of your day to just talk about the vaccine and the importance of getting the vaccine and information about it. I'm wondering if you can share any final encouragements about why people should get vaccinated, or just any other things that you would like to share from as a doctor or from Birdseye Medical that you think is helpful in this conversation.
Yeah, I think that I do. I think a lot of people that I talk to too are very frustrated with people that haven't gotten the vaccine or are very opposed to the vaccine. And I mean, there's this huge. I think we all know there's this huge polarity of we're seeing a real division among people that have or have not. And I think
Sure.
that is I think just patience and compassion and empathy, just encouraging people to keep on working at it. This is not a done deal. People that have been vaccine hesitant, we are vaccinating them every day. I mean, people that haven't gotten vaccinated are showing up and getting vaccinated in smaller numbers. So just keep on working on it, and meeting people where they're at, and keep on doing it. And we're making progress every day. And this Delta wave has been very bad. It's been the worst we've
Mm,
seen in Washington state. And I think that also is making the reality and the importance of it, and changing people's minds all the time. So
mm.
don't give up hope that we're gonna end up with our 70% vaccinated, and with kids coming up to being able to be vaccinated. Don't give up hope or get despairing or too angry about it. Keep on working at it.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. I think it's important in this process of encouraging people to get vaccinated. Remember that we're all human and going through this, and it is challenging. And so I appreciate the empathy and the compassion that you are showing towards your patients and the people that you work with.
Absolutely.
So we have been listening to Dr. Mary Biggerstaff discuss her thoughts and perspectives on the COVID vaccine. I want to thank her for being on the podcast today. We also want to thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of the Equity Circle podcast. Please share it with your friends and family. We're on all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. And lastly, remember that equity equals progress.